Infection scares us differently than other horror. A monster you can run from, a ghost you can exorcise, a killer you can fight. But infection? Infection gets inside. It uses your body against you. It turns you into the thing everyone else needs to run from. And no, we're not talking about the usual suspects. You won't find the Thing or Alien here. Everyone knows those. Everyone's analyzed Carpenter's Paranoia masterpiece and Scott's chestburster to death. We're going deeper, weirder, into infections that don't get discussed enough, despite being genuinely more disturbing than the classics everyone quotes. Today we're examining 8 films that represent infection at its most unsettling. This is the scariest depictions of infections in horror, the ones that don't get enough attention, the ones that will actually fuck you up. Let's begin. The Crazies works because it plays fair. Biological weapon contaminates water supply. People go violently insane. Military quarantines the town. You understand every piece. You think you could survive this. That comfort is a trap. Romero's 1973 original and the 2010 remake both use the same framework. Small American town, tight-knit community, sudden outbreak of violent madness. The infected become killers, but they're still recognizably human. You can see the threat. You can theoretically avoid contaminated water. The rules make sense. Except, the rules don't matter when nobody enforces them correctly. The military arrives. Hazmat suits, assault rifles, quarantine protocols. They're supposed to help. Instead, they make everything worse. Families get separated at checkpoints. Healthy people get shot for running. The infected slip through screening because the tests don't work fast enough. Authority becomes more dangerous than the disease. The 2010 remake nails this during the high school scene. Soldiers herd townspeople into the gymnasium for medical screening. Anyone showing symptoms gets pulled into a side room. You watch families torn apart. A wife dragged away from her husband. Parents separated from children. And the kicker? Some of the people being taken aren't infected. The screening criteria are too broad. The soldiers don't care. They're following orders. Meanwhile, actual infected people, still in early stages, pass the screening, because the infection doesn't announce itself immediately. This creates an impossible situation. You can't trust the authorities meant to protect you. You can't trust your neighbors, because anyone might be infected. You can't even trust yourself, because the early symptoms look like stress, fear, exhaustion, all things you'd naturally feel during an outbreak. The infection spreads through water. You have to drink eventually. Your body demands it. The film traps you with biological necessity. You can avoid the infected maybe. You cannot avoid getting thirsty. Here's the real genius. The infected don't become something else. They become concentrated versions of themselves. The angry drunk becomes homicidally violent. The controlling husband becomes a killer. The frustrated teen murders his family. The infection strips away inhibition and amplifies existing darkness, which means you could be infected right now and rationalize it as justified anger, reasonable fear, understandable paranoia. The line between sick and responding appropriately to crisis disappears. The town sheriff becomes a perfect example. He's a good man trying to maintain order. But watch his progression. First he follows protocol, then he bends rules to save people, then he breaks them. Then he's executing infected townspeople in the streets without trial. The infection didn't touch him physically, but the crisis it created turned him into something monstrous anyway. There's a scene where he corners an infected neighbor, someone he's known for years, trapped in a car wash. The man is sick, clearly gone, but he's also crying, terrified, begging. The sheriff shoots him anyway. Mercy killing or murder? The film won't tell you. Both are true. The ending reinforces everything. The infection isn't contained. The government knew the risks and deployed the weapon anyway. They'll do it again. The satellite imagery shows the same pattern repeating in another town. The cycle continues because the people creating bioweapons are the same people pretending they can control them. The Crazies gives you containment protocols, clear symptoms, identifiable vectors, everything infection horror typically provides. But it shows how none of that matters when the response infrastructure is designed for control rather than cure. The infection kills people. The government response kills everyone. You leave the Crazies thinking you've got infection horror figured out. Biological agent, clear transmission vector, governmental cover-up, standard stuff. You're wrong. We're just getting started. David Cronenberg's Shivers strips away the comfort immediately. The infection here is a parasite, deliberately created, that spreads through sex. And it doesn't just make you violent, it makes you want things, wrong things. Things that dissolve your identity into pure impulse. The setting matters. Starliner Towers, a luxury high-rise apartment complex, self-contained community, swimming pool, shops, medical clinic, everything you need without ever leaving. It's sold as paradise. It becomes a perfect breeding ground. A scientist creates the parasite intentionally. Dr. Hobbes wants to return humanity to a more natural state, free from inhibition, driven by desire, pure instinct. He believes civilization has made us sick by suppressing our animal nature. So he engineers a cure, a combination aphrodisiac and venereal disease. He infects his teenage mistress, then kills her and himself. But the parasite is already loose in the building. The early scenes are clinical. A medical examination reveals the parasite. It looks like a turd-shaped slug, grotesque but understandable, a thing you can point at and say, that's the enemy. Then the infection spreads. Victims become hypersexual. They attack others not to kill, but to fuck. The parasite needs new hosts. Sex is the transmission vector, but infected people don't shamble like zombies. They seduce. They use language, manipulation, physical attraction. Your body responds even though your brain knows something is wrong. Cronenberg understands that sexual desire overrides rational thinking. The film weaponizes this. A woman infected with the parasite crawls into bed with a man. She's clearly sick, sweating, trembling, eyes wrong. He knows something's off. He tries to resist. His body betrays him. The parasite uses biology against consciousness. The apartment complex becomes a closed system. Infection spreads floor by floor, unit by unit. The swimming pool scene is the tipping point. Infected residents gather in the water. They're not attacking anyone yet. They're just there, together, moving in sync. You watch social structures collapse in real time. What makes Shivers deeply uncomfortable is how it presents infection as liberation. The infected people seem happier, freed from social constraint, sexual repression, individual anxiety. They've joined something larger. They're part of the collective now. No more loneliness, no more shame. One infected woman explains to her husband, "I'm finally free. Don't you want to be free too?" The film asks a horrible question. What if infection is better? The protagonist, Dr. Saint-Luc, resists for most of the runtime. He's rational, controlled, professional. A doctor, he understands disease. He can fight this. He barricades himself in his apartment. He tries to contact authorities outside the complex, but the phones are cut. The exits are blocked. The infected control the building now. He watches from his window as infected residents leave the complex in their cars, calm, purposeful. They're spreading into the city, heading to nightclubs, parties, anywhere people gather. The infection is going public. In the final sequence, the infected break into St. Luc's apartment. He fights. He loses. The parasite enters him. And in his eyes, just before the film cuts to black, you see something shift. Resistance fades. Understanding dawns. He's been fighting the wrong thing. The parasite isn't the disease. Civilization was. The parasite is the cure. The last shot, infected residents driving through Montreal at night. Dozens of cars, hundreds of infected. They're smiling, laughing, free. Shivers escalates infection horror by making contamination desirable. The Crazies showed you neighbors turned violent. Shivers shows you neighbors turned into something that wants you to join them. Violence you can fight. Seduction is harder. The body is the enemy here, but not because it's breaking down. Because it wants things consciousness can't control. The parasite hijacks evolutionary drives older than rational thought. You can be disgusted, horrified, determined to resist. Your body stops caring about what you think. Cronenberg would spend his entire career exploring this territory. Videodrome, The Fly, Existenziel, all variations on the same theme. The body has its own agenda. Technology, disease, desire, they're all just triggers for transformation that was always inevitable. The self is not unified. The mind doesn't control the flesh. We're passengers in meat suits programmed by evolution to want things that might destroy us. We've moved from infection as external threat to infection as internal betrayal. The invasion comes from inside. Your own biology is the vector, but we're not done escalating. Barry Levinson's The Bay shifts the horror into plausible territory, found footage documentary style, real-world parasite, governmental negligence. Everything feels possible. This infection could actually happen, probably already has somewhere. The film presents itself as suppressed footage from a 4th of July celebration in a Chesapeake Bay town. Isopods, parasitic crustaceans, have mutated due to chicken farm runoff contaminating the bay. They start small. They grow to enormous size inside human hosts. They eat people from the inside out. The documentary format makes everything worse. You're watching real footage. Security cameras, phone videos, hospital records, news broadcasts, dashboard cams, Skype calls. The infection unfolds across multiple perspectives simultaneously. Nobody has the full picture. Everyone sees pieces. The truth assembles slowly while people die. Isopods are real. They exist in nature. They do parasitize fish, replacing their tongues with their own bodies. The mutation is the fiction, but barely. Factory farming does create runoff. Chemical contamination does cause mutations. Corporations do dump illegally. Governments do cover up. The science is plausible enough to make your skin crawl. The film opens with Donna, a news intern, explaining that she's releasing footage the government confiscated. She survived. She's showing us what they didn't want us to see. This framing immediately establishes that the infection was real, was covered up, and the people responsible faced no consequences. Then we go back to the day of the outbreak. A marine biology student named Donna, yes, the same one, is studying water samples from the bay. She finds alarming contamination levels, toxins from chicken farm runoff. She reports it to her supervisor. He tells her to retest. She does. Same results. Higher, actually. She reports again. She's told the equipment must be malfunctioning. The data can't be right because it would require shutting down the farms, cleaning the bay, canceling the town's main tourist event. Too expensive, too disruptive. Her findings are filed and forgotten. The celebration happens anyway. Hundreds of people swim in contaminated water, eat oysters harvested from toxic beds, drink tap water connected to the bay. The infection vectors are everywhere, simultaneously active, impossible to avoid. Meanwhile, the local hospitals start seeing patients with strange symptoms, rashes, lesions, blisters. They think allergic reaction, maybe jellyfish stings. They prescribe cream. The patients get worse. Boils erupt across their skin. Things move underneath. You can see shapes pressing against the surface from inside. The doctors finally cut one open. Isopods, dozens of them, crawling out of the incision. They've been eating the patient alive from inside, consuming organs, replacing tissue with their own mass. The patient's abdomen is full of them. There's nothing left inside but parasites. The film doesn't cut away. You watch the entire procedure, the doctor's hands shaking, the isopods spilling onto the floor, the patient screaming, the realization that this is happening to hundreds of people simultaneously across town. The hospital gets overwhelmed immediately. Too many victims, not enough beds, no treatment protocol because nobody's ever seen this before. Doctors improvise. They try antibiotics, antiparasitics. Nothing works. The isopods are too big to kill without killing the host. And they're breeding inside people. Each victim is an incubator producing thousands more. The mayor is informed. He doesn't shut down the celebration. Too much money at stake. The town's economy depends on this weekend. He tells the hospital to handle it quietly. Don't cause panic. The CDC gets notified. They send a team. The team arrives hours too late. The infection has already spread through the water system to neighboring towns. The bay itself is contaminated. Millions of gallons of water, all infected. No way to contain it. A FEMA conference call discusses options. Quarantine is mentioned, rejected. Too many people. Evacuation, where to? The surrounding areas are already infected. Nuke the bay, politically impossible. They settle on managing the situation, which means damage control. Spin, classified reports, suppressed footage. The bay uses institutional failure as its primary horror mechanism. The EPA knew about the contamination months earlier. The local government knew. The chicken farming corporation knew. Everyone knew, and everyone decided the economic cost of doing something outweighed the risk to public health, until people started dying. Then they decided the political cost of admitting they knew outweighed the value of transparency. So they lied. Classified everything, confiscated footage, declared the outbreak contained when it wasn't, blamed terrorists, then retracted that, then stopped commenting entirely. Children die. The film doesn't flinch from this. A couple brings their baby to the ER covered in lesions. The doctors try to help. The baby dies screaming. The parents are infected too. The father dies next. The mother goes into shock. You watch her shut down in real time. System overload. She stops processing reality because reality has become unprocessable. The found footage format means you see the failure cascade across multiple systems simultaneously. Medical, political, media, social. Everything collapses, not from the infection directly, but from the response, or lack of response. The system's meant to protect people, protect themselves instead. Donna, the marine biologist, tries to warn people. She's ignored, then threatened, then detained. Her data is confiscated. She's released after signing an NDA. She violates it by leaking the footage years later. Too late to help anyone, just late enough that most people don't care anymore. The film ends with statistics. Over 700 dead, thousands infected. Economic damage in the billions. No one held accountable. The chicken farms still operate. The bay was cleaned, but contamination persists. Similar conditions exist in 40 other locations across the country. The horror is how mundane the evil is. Nobody wanted people to die. They just wanted to avoid the inconvenience and expense of doing the right thing. Cost-benefit analysis, acceptable losses, plausible deniability, quarterly earnings, re-election campaigns. The machine keeps running. The bodies are externalities. The bay makes infection personal and political simultaneously. You're disgusted by the parasites eating people alive. You're enraged by the bureaucratic cowardice that allowed it to happen. The film creates physical revulsion and moral fury in equal measure. It also weaponizes documentation. The footage exists because people filmed their own deaths, thinking someone would see it and help. Instead, it was suppressed, classified, buried. The film we're watching supposedly leaked years later, which means in the fiction, the infection was covered up. The deaths were explained away. Nothing changed. This is infection horror made real. The parasites are disgusting, yes, but the real infection is institutional. It's the rot in systems that value money over lives, that classify mass death as an acceptable externality, that suppress evidence and continue business as usual. You can't fight this infection with medicine. The disease is in the decision-making itself. We've escalated from infection as biological threat to infection as systemic failure, and we're about to go somewhere even more unsettling. Trey, Edward Schultz's It Comes at Night barely shows the infection. You never see the disease clearly. You don't know how it spreads exactly. You don't know the incubation period. You don't even know if everyone who says they're healthy actually is. The infection becomes an absence, a negative space around which all human behavior warps. The film follows two families in a boarded-up house in the woods. Civilization has collapsed. Some kind of infection has killed most of humanity. The survivors have established strict protocols, quarantine procedures, decontamination rituals, trust no one, touch nothing, stay inside after dark. Paul, the father of the first family, has rules. Everyone follows the rules. His father-in-law got infected and Paul shot him, wrapped the body in a sheet, wore a gas mask, burned it, buried it far from the house. He did what was necessary. The rules kept them alive. Then another family arrives. Will, his wife Kim, their young son Andrew. They were trying to get water. They broke into the house not knowing anyone lived there. Paul captures Will, ties him to a tree outside, leaves him there overnight to see if he shows symptoms. He doesn't. Paul brings him inside. They negotiate. Will has livestock and food stored at his family's abandoned place. Paul has water and shelter. They can help each other. They agree to coexist. The film becomes a pressure cooker. Two families in close quarters. Everyone armed, everyone paranoid. Every cough is scrutinized. Every unexplained noise investigated. The infection is maybe out there, but the real danger is in here, among them. The genius of It Comes at Night is how it makes normal behavior suspicious. Andrew, Will's son, has nightmares. He sleepwalks. He wanders the house at night. Is he sick? Is he infected? Or is he just a traumatized 6-year-old in an impossible situation, processing horror the only way children can. You can't tell. The characters can't tell. The film refuses to tell you. Paranoia becomes contagious. Paul starts suspecting Will's family. Will starts suspecting Paul's family. They're all looking for signs of infection, where there might be none. Or there might be. The uncertainty is the weapon. The red door is the boundary, the only entrance and exit. It's always locked. 2 locks, one on the outside, one on the inside. Both families have keys. The rule is simple. Nobody opens the door without both families present. Nobody goes outside alone. Nobody breaks protocol. One night the door is open. Paul wakes up, checks the door, finds it standing wide open. The dog is gone. Tracks lead into the woods. They follow. They find the dog dying, infected, covered in sores and tumors. Paul shoots it, but the dog was inside, which means someone opened the door. Will's family and Paul's family accuse each other. Who opened the door? Why? What were they doing? Will suggests maybe Andrew sleepwalked and let the dog out. Paul doesn't buy it. The locks are too high. A 6-year-old couldn't reach them. Someone is lying. The next morning, Andrew is sick. Fever, sweating. Could be stress. Could be dehydration. Could be normal childhood illness. Could be the infection. Will and Kim want to leave with their son. Get away from Paul's family in case they're infected. Paul won't allow it. If Andrew is sick, they can't leave. They'll spread it. Will argues, gets aggressive. Paul's wife Sarah gets their son, Travis, their guns. It's 2 against 3. Paul has Sarah and Travis. Will has Kim and sick Andrew. The standoff escalates. Will tries to force his way out. Paul shoots him. Kim screams, grabs her husband. Paul shoots her too. Andrew is crying, terrified, trying to wake his dead parents. Travis hesitates. Paul doesn't. He shoots the child. 3 executions in 30 seconds. Paul's family kills Will's entire family. For safety, for survival, for the rules. The final act, Paul, Sarah, and Travis at the dinner table. Silent. Sarah is crying. Travis looks destroyed. They're alive. They're safe. The infection didn't get them, but Travis gets sick. Fever, night sweats. He's infected. Or he's traumatized. Or he's breaking down from stress and guilt. You never find out because the film ends before symptoms clarify. Paul and Sarah look at their son, at each other. The film cuts to black before they make the decision. But you know what they'll do. The rules don't have exceptions, not even for your own child. It comes at night, understands that infection horror works best when the disease is invisible. When you can't verify who's sick, you can't trust anyone. When you can't trust anyone, you make decisions based on fear rather than evidence. Fear makes you dangerous. The infection barely matters. It's a MacGuffin. The real subject is how crisis reveals what people are willing to do to survive. How quickly civilization's veneer cracks. How easily we justify violence against others when we frame it as self-defense. Paul is not a villain. He's trying to protect his family. Every decision he makes is rational within his framework. Don't trust outsiders. Assume the worst. Better to be wrong and alive than right and dead. These are legitimate survival rules in a collapse scenario. But they also make him a killer. They transform protection into paranoia, caution into cruelty. The rules meant to preserve humanity end up destroying it. Paul murders an entire family, including a child, based on suspicion. Maybe he was right. Maybe Andrew was infected, but probably not. Probably he just killed innocent people. The film operates on ambiguity. You never know who, if anyone, is actually infected. You never know if Paul's paranoia is justified, or if he's manufacturing threats to justify his violence. The infection exists as permission. It gives people license to act on their worst impulses and call it survival. This is infection as psychological weapon. The disease doesn't have to kill you directly. It just has to make you afraid enough to kill each other. It creates the conditions for atrocity and lets human nature do the rest. We've moved from physical infection to social infection. The disease is fear itself. Trust becomes impossible. Community collapses. Everyone becomes a potential vector, a potential threat, a potential enemy. And now, we cross into territory where the line between infection and psychology dissolves completely. Andrzej Żuławski's Posession is where infection horror stops pretending to be about biology. The film uses disease imagery, body horror, mutation, contagion. But what's actually infected is the relationship between Anna and Mark. Their marriage is the sick organism. Everything else is symptom. The film opens with Mark returning from a long absence. Spy work, maybe. Something classified. He comes home to his wife Anna and son Bob in West Berlin. The wall is up. The city is divided. Mark wants to reconnect with his family. Anna wants a divorce. She's having an affair. She admits it immediately. She's been seeing someone named Heinrich, a New Age guru type who teaches students about the inner voice and achieving wholeness. Mark is devastated but willing to forgive. He wants to fix things, work on the marriage. Anna doesn't. She moves out. Mark hires a detective to follow her. The detective discovers Anna isn't staying with Heinrich. She's renting an apartment alone. She goes there every day, stays for hours. The detective breaks in to investigate while she's out. He finds something in the bedroom, something not human. It attacks him. He barely escapes, bleeding, traumatized. He quits the case. Mark confronts Anna. She's evasive, manic, switching between cold rationality and hysterical emotion. She won't explain. She can't explain. Language fails. She starts physically breaking down, convulsing, her body contorting. She has what appears to be a miscarriage in a subway tunnel, thrashing on the ground, screaming, fluids everywhere. Commuters watch in horror. Nobody helps. It's one of the most visceral scenes in cinema. She's not sick. She's not possessed. She's both, or neither. The film refuses clear diagnosis. The thing in Anna's apartment is revealed gradually. A creature. Tentacled, slimy, vaguely humanoid. Anna is feeding it, caring for it, having sex with it. The creature is evolving, changing shape, becoming more human with each encounter. It starts to resemble Mark. Not exactly, but close. Like a copy made from memory rather than blueprint. Meanwhile, Mark is losing his grip. He becomes violent, obsessive. He stalks Anna. He kills the detective to hide evidence. He has sex with Helen, Bob's teacher, who looks exactly like Anna, but with lighter hair. The film suggests Helen might be Anna's doppelganger, or Anna might have created Helen somehow, or they're the same person split in two. Reality becomes unreliable. Characters act in ways that make no logical sense. They shift between personas mid-scene. The apartment with the creature becomes a nightmare space where the laws of physics bend. Blood and slime cover every surface. The creature grows. Anna degenerates. Her body is breaking down, skin pale, eyes sunken, movements jerky and wrong. Possession presents infection as relational breakdown made literal. The marriage is sick. Anna is gestating something that will replace Mark. The creature is Mark as Anna needs him to be. Devoted, uncomplicated, physically perfect. It's Mark without the human messiness, without the ability to disappoint or abandon or hurt her. But creating the ideal version requires destroying yourself. Anna physically deteriorates as the creature improves. She's transferring her life force, her sanity, herself into this other thing. She's infecting herself with her own desires until there's nothing left but the wanting. Mark undergoes a parallel process. He becomes monstrous, trying to fight the monster. His violence escalates. He beats Heinrich nearly to death. He kills people. He stops being human in his pursuit of destroying the thing that isn't human. The infection is mutual. They're both transforming into something other through the failure of their relationship. The film uses body horror to externalize emotional horror. When people say they're sick of their relationship, possession makes it literal. When someone says their partner is killing them, possession makes it biological. The language we use for relationship dysfunction is already disease language. The film just follows the metaphor to its conclusion. Bob, their son, exists at the margins, neglected by both parents, taken care of by Helen, who might be a manifestation of what Anna could have been if the marriage worked. The child is the only innocent party and the most damaged. He's caught between versions of his mother, versions of his father, reality and delusion. The ending is apocalyptic. The creature, now fully formed and indistinguishable from Mark except for the eyes, exists alongside Mark. Anna has created her perfect partner. Mark confronts them both in the apartment. Violence erupts. Bodies collide. Blood sprays. The apartment is destroyed. Anna dies. Mark dies. The creature survives. Meanwhile, outside, sirens wail. Ambulances everywhere. Armed military. Tanks in the streets. Something has spread beyond the apartment. The private infection has become public. The marital breakdown has somehow contaminated the city. Or the city's division, the wall-splitting Berlin, has been causing private breakdowns all along. The film won't clarify. The final image is Bob sitting in the apartment with Helen, who might be Anna or might be something else wearing her face. They're together, waiting. The world outside is collapsing. The infection that started in a failing marriage has metastasized beyond comprehension. You can interpret possession multiple ways. Straight horror. A woman creates a demon through occult means. It grows and spreads. Psychological horror. Anna's mental breakdown creates hallucinations. The creature is delusion. Relationship horror. The marriage itself is the monster. Anna and Mark are infecting each other with their dysfunction until they create something toxic between them. The film supports all interpretations simultaneously. That's what makes it so unsettling. You can't locate the infection clearly. Is it in Anna's body, in Mark's mind, in the space between them, in the city, in reality itself? Possession dissolves the boundary between physical and psychological infection. The disease is in the relationship, but manifests as body horror. The creature is real, but also metaphorical. The contagion spreads from the personal to the social without clear transmission vector. We've crossed into territory where infection isn't something you catch. It's something you create through your relationships, your desires, your inability to process trauma. The call is coming from inside the house, from inside your own psychology. And now we go somewhere even stranger. Tony Burgess's Pontypool does something no other infection film attempts. It makes language the virus, not speech as metaphor for ideas. Actual words, actual syllables, actual semantic units functioning as infectious agents that destroy cognition. The film takes place almost entirely inside a radio station in Pontypool, Ontario. Grant Mazzy is the shock jock morning host. Sidney Breyer is his producer. Laurel Ann Drummond is his assistant. They're doing drive time radio. Traffic, weather, local news, routine. Then reports start coming in from their eyes in the sky reporter. A crowd is forming outside a medical clinic. They're not protesting, they're just standing there, silent, swaying. Someone describes them as confused, but the word doesn't fit what he's seeing. More reports. The crowd has become violent. They're attacking the clinic staff. Not organized, not coordinated, just attacking, biting them, tearing at them with hands and teeth. It's spreading. Multiple locations across town. People are going insane. Mazzy keeps broadcasting. He's a professional. He relays information as it comes in, but the reports get stranger. The infected aren't just violent, they're repeating words, specific words, over and over. Honey, doctor, baby. They say the word until it loses all meaning. Then they start trying to pull the word out of their own mouths, literally, clawing at their faces, ripping their tongues out, eating other people's mouths trying to get at the words inside. The infection is linguistic. Certain words in English are contaminated. If you understand the word, if you process its meaning, you become infected. The word enters your brain and corrupts your language center. You become obsessed with the word. You repeat it until semantic satiation destroys its meaning. Then you go mad trying to recover it. Dr. Mendez arrives at the station. He's been studying the infection in the field. He explains the mechanism. The virus spreads through conversation, through understanding. The act of comprehending meaning transmits the disease. Certain words in the English language, terms of endearment mostly, have become vectors. The more you engage with language, the more vulnerable you are. The solution, he says, is to destroy meaning. If you can strip words of their semantic content, treat them as pure sound, you can avoid infection. But that requires consciously breaking your ability to understand language. You have to fragment your own cognition, lobotomize yourself linguistically. Pontypool creates an impossible situation. Language is how humans communicate. It's how we process information, build relationships, understand reality. The film makes the fundamental tool of consciousness into a weapon against itself. You can't warn people without using language. Every broadcast Mazzy makes potentially infects more listeners. Every explanation of the disease spreads the disease. The act of trying to help makes things worse. The more information you provide, the more danger you create. The film forces characters to deconstruct language in real time. When Sidney starts showing infection symptoms, repeating the word missing, Mazzy tries to save her. He makes her repeat the word until it becomes meaningless sound, just syllables. Missing, missing, me sing, me sing. The word breaks apart. Sydney stops understanding it. The infection loses its hold. She recovers. But you can't do this for every word. You can't live without language. Even thinking requires internal monologue. The infection is in the structure of consciousness itself. To be human is to use language. To use language is to risk infection. Pontypool uses radio as its medium deliberately. You never see the infection directly. You only hear reports, descriptions, audio of people screaming, chanting, dying. Your imagination fills in the visuals, and by imagining it, by processing the words describing the horror, you're participating in the infection's spread. The film creates a meta-horror. The audience is listening to a radio broadcast about an infection spread through listening to broadcasts. Are we infected? Can fiction contaminate reality? Where's the boundary between story and experience when the story is about how stories infect? The infection escalates. Dr. Mendez becomes infected mid-explanation. He starts repeating words, then he attacks. Sydney kills him. But now they know anyone can become infected at any moment. There's no safe speech, no uncontaminated words. Every sentence is a potential vector. Mazzy makes a decision. He's going to use language against itself. He starts broadcasting nonsense, free association, word salad. Syntax, 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 repeated until it's just sound. He's trying to immunize listeners by exposing them to language that means nothing. Kill the virus by killing meaning itself. The final act becomes surreal. Mazzy and Sydney are speaking, but not communicating. They're making sounds shaped like English, but emptied of content. They're performing language without using it. And it might be working. Or it might be the infection's final stage. The film won't clarify. The ending is deliberately ambiguous. Mazzy and Sydney might escape, or they might be hallucinating. Or they might have broken their language centers so thoroughly that they can no longer distinguish reality from delusion. The infection might be contained to Pontypool, or it might have spread globally through broadcasts, through phone calls, through the internet. You can't know because the film's own language has become unreliable. The medium is infected with the message it's trying to convey. Pontypool is infection at the conceptual level. The disease doesn't need physical transmission. It spreads through communication itself, through the exchange of information, through the human need to understand and be understood. Language is how we make meaning. It's how we construct identity, maintain relationships, organize reality into comprehensible patterns. The film shows what happens when the tool we use to make sense of the world becomes the thing that destroys our ability to make sense. We've escalated from physical infection to psychological to linguistic. The disease is now in the system we use to process reality. You can't trust your senses. You can't trust other people. And now you can't trust language itself. The fundamental tool of human cognition is toxic. But we're not done. There are 2 more levels to go. Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse, Cairo in Japanese, presents infection without biology. The disease spreads through technology, through the internet. But what's actually spreading isn't a virus. It's loneliness, existential isolation, the slow realization that connection is impossible and existence is unbearable. The film follows 2 parallel storylines in Tokyo. In one, a group of university students notices their friend Taguchi has become withdrawn. He stops responding to messages. They go to his apartment. He's there but changed, distant, flat affect. He shows them something on his computer, a website, then hangs himself in the next room while they're still there, casually, like turning off a light. In the other storyline, Kawashima, a student with no internet experience, gets his first computer. He connects. Immediately, a website loads without him requesting it. It asks, "Would you like to meet a ghost?" He sees a webcam feed, a dark room, a figure in the corner, motionless, just existing. The 2 storylines converge as the students investigate what Taguchi saw. The website spreads, more people encounter it. Everyone who does becomes isolated. They withdraw from social contact. They stop eating, sleeping, engaging with reality. Eventually, they disappear. Literally, they fade into shadows on walls, leaving only dark stains behind. Ghosts in reverse, life becoming afterlife. Pulse suggests the internet has breached the boundary between life and death. The dead are overflowing from their realm into ours. But they're not malevolent spirits seeking revenge. They're lonely. They're reaching out. The problem is that contact with them reveals a truth the living can't survive knowing. When the living encounter the dead online, they're confronted with the fundamental nature of existence. We're all alone. Connection is temporary at best, illusory at worst. Every relationship ends. Everyone you love will die or leave or become distant. The dead aren't bringing this message, they're just proof that it's true. The infection impulse is ontological. It's not a disease you catch. It's a realization you can't unlearn. Once you understand the depth of existential isolation, you can't function. You can't maintain the lie that life has meaning or connection is real. You fade, you disappear, you become a ghost yourself. The film uses technology as the vector because technology promised connection. The internet was supposed to bring people together. Instead, it isolated. You're alone in a room, staring at a screen, performing connection while actually just projecting into the void. Kurosawa shoots Tokyo as a dying city. Empty streets, abandoned buildings. The population is vanishing without violence, without catastrophe. People aren't fleeing, they're just ceasing to exist, giving up. The infection spreads through realization, through the moment when you stop being able to lie to yourself about what life is. There's a scene where Kawashima and Harue, one of Taguchi's friends, find a woman who's sealed herself in a room with red tape. Red tape keeps the ghosts out, she explains. For a while. She's alone. She's been alone for weeks. She knows she'll disappear soon. She's just delaying it. The tape is a temporary boundary against the inevitable. Why red tape? The film doesn't explain. Maybe it's ritual. Maybe it's superstition. Maybe it actually works through some mechanism we don't understand. Or maybe it's just something to do, a way to maintain the illusion of control when you have none. The film's climax shows society collapsing without violence or revolution. People just stop participating. They stop going to work, stop maintaining infrastructure, stop breeding, eating, caring. The population decreases. Buildings fall into disrepair. Tokyo becomes a ghost city populated by ghosts who were once human. Haru tries to escape. She reaches a dock where a ship is leaving, supposedly one of the last. She gets on. The ship is full of refugees fleeing the infection. But there's nowhere to go. The infection isn't localized to Tokyo or Japan. It's everywhere. The ship sails towards South America. Will they find anything different there? The film suggests they won't. There's nothing to run from. The infection is in being itself. Pulse makes infection synonymous with awareness, with seeing clearly. The ghosts aren't monsters. They're what happens when you strip away all the distractions and face existence directly. You see that connection is impossible, that meaning is constructed, that consciousness is a trap. The infection is enlightenment, and enlightenment is unbearable. The film's horror is quiet. No gore, minimal violence, just people fading away, buildings decaying, silence spreading. Humanity doesn't end with apocalypse. It ends with exhaustion, with the collective decision that continuing isn't worth it. The infection spreads because people look at life honestly and decide they'd rather not. This is infection as philosophical crisis. The disease isn't in your body or your mind, it's in the structure of existence itself. You can't cure it because there's nothing to cure. You're not sick, you're awake. And being awake in a meaningless universe is intolerable. We've escalated from biological to psychological to linguistic to existential. The infection is now in reality itself, in the fact of being conscious and alone and temporary. And there's one more level, one final escalation. Alex Garland's Annihilation, based on Jeff Vandermeer's novel, takes infection to its absolute limit. The Shimmer is an infected zone expanding across the American coastline. But what's infected isn't clear. The land, the biology, space-time itself, the concept of discrete identity, all of the above and more. A meteorite strikes a lighthouse. Something emerges, a shimmer like oil on water, like heat distortion, spreading outward from the impact site, creating a zone, refracting everything inside. Inside the zone, the normal rules don't apply. Biology mutates, DNA splices across species barriers, plants become humanoid, animals become hybrid horrors, form becomes unstable, people go in, soldiers, scientists, explorers, expeditions sent to reach the lighthouse and understand what's happening. Nobody comes back, The shimmer keeps expanding. Eventually it will engulf cities, countries, the world. Except one man returns, Kane, a soldier, Lena's husband. He's been gone a year. He comes home with no memory of where he's been. He can barely speak. His organs start failing. Multiple organ failure, accelerated cancer, cellular breakdown. He's dying. Lena, a biologist, joins an all-woman team entering the shimmer to reach the lighthouse. The team consists of specialists, physicist, psychologist, medic, anthropologist, biologist, all women with relevant expertise, all volunteers, and as the psychologist Dr. Ventris reveals, all damaged in different ways, all self-destructive, addicts in recovery, trauma survivors, people with terminal diagnoses, women with nothing left to lose. Nobody healthy volunteers for a suicide mission. You have to be seeking death already. Inside the shimmer, the infection reveals itself gradually. It's not hostile. It's not trying to kill. It's refractive. It takes DNA and replicates it, mixes it, spreads it promiscuously across organisms. A prism for biology. Everything that enters becomes mixed with everything else. Plants grow in the shape of humans. Where people died, flowers sprout in the outline of their bodies. Deer have flowers blooming from their antlers, fungus growing from their skulls. A crystalline forest grows with trees that look like glass sculptures of trees. Beautiful and wrong. The team members are infected immediately upon entry. Their DNA starts to splice with everything around them. Blood drawn from one team member shows cells that belong to someone else. Fingerprints shift. Bruises appear that look like leaf patterns. Mutations manifest and change daily. The boundaries between individuals dissolve. This is infection as metamorphosis. The shimmer doesn't want to kill. It wants to transform, to create something new. It treats Earth's biology as raw material. It's painting with DNA, creating art from life itself. As the team approaches the lighthouse, they fracture. One member, Shepard, goes mad seeing the mutations in herself and is killed by the bear creature. Another, Ventris, embraces the transformation. Flowers growing through her skin in beautiful patterns. She walks away into the trees to become part of the landscape, choosing merger over individuality. Another, Anya, tries to cut the shimmer out of herself. She can't. It's in every cell. She becomes paranoid, convinced the others aren't who they claim to be. She's right. They're not. Not entirely. They're all becoming something else. She dies trying to preserve a self that's already gone. Lena reaches the lighthouse. Dr. Ventris is there, at the epicenter, transforming into something beyond biology. Pure energy taking vaguely human shape. She asks Lena, "What does it want?" Meaning, the shimmer. Lena doesn't know. Ventris disintegrates into light. It doesn't want anything. It's not thinking. It's just doing what it does. The shimmer creates because that's what it is. A force of transformation, mutation, change. It doesn't have goals or desires. It's a process that happens to include consciousness in its scope, but isn't directed by consciousness. It's evolution happening too fast for awareness to track. Lena confronts her doppelganger. The shimmer creates an entity from her blood, a copy, but it's not exact. It mimics her movements perfectly in a disturbing dance. Learning, becoming. If she leaves, it leaves. Her form could spread outside the shimmer. Everything that makes her her could be replicated endlessly. She tricks it, gives it a phosphorus grenade. The copy examines it, mimics putting it down. Lena backs away. The copy follows. Right back to Ventris's disintegrating body at the lighthouse center. The grenade ignites. The lighthouse burns. The shimmer collapses. Lena escapes, but she's infected, changed. Her eyes shimmer when light hits them. Her DNA is spliced with things that shouldn't be. She's not entirely Lena anymore. Some percentage of her cells belong to other organisms now. She's a hybrid, a new thing. The final scene, Lena and Kane reunited in quarantine, both infected, both changed. Kane asks if she's really Lena. She asks if he's really Kane. Neither answers. The shimmer might be gone, but its work continues inside them. There's something new, something in between human and other. Annihilation presents infection as evolution, as the next stage. The shimmer doesn't destroy life. It makes life into something else, something that doesn't fit categories like human or animal or plant or individual, something merged, plural, collective. The horror is the loss of discrete identity. Inside the shimmer, you stop being you in any meaningful sense. Your cells mix with the environment. Your DNA becomes communal property. The boundary between self and world erases. You become part of a larger pattern. But is that horror or transcendence? The film refuses to choose. Some characters embrace the transformation. Ventress walks into it willingly. Others fight desperately. Anya tries to cut it out. The shimmer doesn't care. It operates beyond human values like good or bad. It just changes things. The infection in Annihilation is reality itself becoming mutable. Form becomes suggestion. Identity becomes temporary. Evolution stops being slow adaptation across generations and becomes instant, chaotic, beautiful, terrifying transformation. You can't fight this. You can't cure it. You can't even understand it fully because understanding requires stable categories and the shimmer dissolves categories. Language fails when trying to describe what's happening. Biology textbooks become inadequate. The concept of infection itself fails because infection implies invasion by something foreign, and the shimmer reveals that the boundary between foreign and self was always arbitrary. This is the culmination. We've gone from biological warfare to body horror to institutional failure to psychological breakdown to relationship dissolution to linguistic contamination to existential void to this. The complete dissolution of individual form. Identity as temporary, self as illusion. The infection is transformation, is change. Is evolution happening too fast for consciousness to process? And there's no going back. Once you've been in the shimmer, even if you escape, you're not you anymore. You're something new, something we don't have words for yet, something beautiful and terrifying and utterly alien wearing a human shape. So, what have we actually been talking about? Not disease. Disease is just the delivery mechanism. Infection horror is about boundaries failing. Every film on this list attacks a different boundary and shows what happens when it collapses. The Crazies attack social trust. Shivers attacks bodily autonomy. The Bay attacks institutional systems. It Comes at Night attacks interpersonal faith. Posession attacks the boundary between internal and external. Pontypool attacks language itself. Pulse attacks existential meaning. Annihilation attacks individual identity. Each escalation removes another layer of protection. By the end, there's nothing left. No boundary holds. Everything bleeds into everything else. This is why infection horror persists and evolves, because the boundaries are fragile. We know this. The difference between healthy and sick is microbial. Between rational and mad is neurochemical. Between self and other is cellular. Between meaning and void is perspective. Infection horror forces us to confront what we spend our lives denying. We're not as separate as we pretend, not as stable, not as safe. The boundaries that define us are temporary constructs that dissolve under pressure. These films don't show us monsters, they show us mirrors. We see our bodies, relationships, societies, minds infected with truths we'd rather ignore. And the horror is realizing we can't build walls strong enough or cut deep enough without cutting ourselves out completely. Because we are the infection. The call is coming from inside. It always was. This was the great abyss. Sweet dreams.